Okay, I'm going to show you how to make plasticine prints. First, you want to take your plasticine and mould it a bit to soften it. And then you're going to roll it into a cylinder. And then you want to squash it down, squash one end down onto a flat surface so you've got a nice flat printing surface. And you can take your tools, I've got a pencil and one of these, and you can just indent into that flat surface with whatever pattern you want. With the pencil, if you press harder, you'll get a bigger hole. You want to try not to drag it across the surface because that will make a ridge. And with this tool or something similar, you can just push a line in. Again, I'm not going very deep. Just like that. It's very quick and easy. And then you can take your stamp pads. These are made by, well, the brand is Versacolor. They're a water-based pigment stamp pad. I've got number 11 Canary, 15 Magenta, 19 Cyan and 22 Fresh Green. These are the small size, you can get bigger ones. And these were about £1.30 something, I think, each. Ideally you want to start with your lighter colour first, and you're just going to take the stamp and dab it onto the pad. Now you need to do that a few times to build up a nice layer of ink. Something like that. And then you can take your paper and you're just going to push that onto the paper, not too hard because you don't want to squash the plasticine. And then each print you do, you need to re-ink the plasticine. And as you do a few prints, the colour will build up on the plasticine and it won't take quite as many inkings per go. And it's quite nice to just print a few and make a pattern. When you print, just hold it for a couple of seconds on the paper while you're pressing, and that will help the ink to soak into the paper a bit better. Each print will be different. There'll be slight differences in pressure and inking. That's part of the beauty of it. So you can have fun building up a pattern. And the design will get a little bit squashed each time you print it, so eventually it will change. But I've done 8 there and it hasn't been too much of a difference. Now when you want to switch colours, you want to take a damp cloth or a wet wipe. I'm just going to use tissue, but ideally a damp cloth or a wet wipe, and just gently wipe the surface. If you're going to reuse the same design, you want to make sure you're not damaging the surface, but you want to get as much ink off as you can. And then we're going to switch colours. I'll do one with magenta. So these are the primary colours of printing that we're using: cyan, magenta and yellow. And those are what are used in printing to make up all the other colours, along with black. I've also got a green just for fun. Okay, This one's taking a little bit longer to get a really good coating. I'll show you that printed on its own first. You see that's a bit paler. I need a little bit more ink on there. All the ink, all the colours are slightly different. The magenta tends to be a bit drier. Okay, and now I'm going to show you what happens when you print that over the yellow. You should get a nice orangey red colour, depending on how dark the magenta is. Okay, now I'm going to make a new design for my blue one. I'm just going to blot off the worst of the ink, and then you can reuse the same piece of plasticine. You can reuse it over and over. Just fold the ink in again, make a nice ball, and then roll it into a cylinder or a sausage, and press down to get your flattened surface. You will find you get these little creases in it. I don't know if you can see that. Now if you want to do a different shape, you can try and make a different shape by pressing the sides. So if you want a square, for instance, you can press the sides, or you could trim them off with a blunt knife. It's quite hard to get a really accurate shape. The square will tend to have rounded corners, but it's not an exact science. So we'll do a different design on here. Put some lines around the edge, give it a sort of jaggedy edge. Want to make sure that that surface stays quite flat, so you're not distorting it when you press into it. Okay, and we're going to do this with the blue, or the cyan. Cyan's just the name for the particular blue that is used in printing as a primary colour, and magenta is the red. So when we think of primary colours, we often think of red, yellow and blue, but in printing they're very specific colours. So magenta is the red, cyan is the blue, and then this is actually just called canary, this yellow, but it's a nice bright yellow. The yellow, you can use pretty much any yellows. Okay, so that's inked up with the blue. I'm going to print that on its own to start with. You can see it's quite a nice light blue. I've got some of those crease marks coming out there. I'm going to re-ink it. This blue seems to not take quite as much ink. We'll try that over the yellow. Should give us a nice green. And over the pink should give us a nice purple. And then if I do that over the one that's been printed with the yellow and the magenta already, we'll get a lot of different colours in there, including a sort of greyish brown colour where all three colours are overlapped. And that's it.